But Q, what's the article that we're going to look at? And let's have a discussion.
So today, the article that we're having a look at is titled How Pilea Helps Founders Break Down Stigma Around Mental Health. So Pilea is a company spun out of a VC fund, and it focuses on integrating mental health and wellness into startup culture. By addressing the mental health challenges founders face, Pilea aims to reduce stigma and foster healthier leadership in the startup ecosystem. Their approach basically emphasizes integrative leadership, and it supports founders holistically to navigate both personal and professional challenges. What do you guys think?
Jacob, let me start off by asking you this question.
Yeah.
What challenges are you seeing as an executive coach between founders, small business owners, and people working as executives? We know there are different buckets, but what are you observing in terms of how their mental health gets affected?
Yeah, I think everybody is running hot right now. That's what it feels like. It's like everybody is on edge. The economy isn't great. It's a tough time. So with that heightened kind of space of just what the general macro environment is, on a more individual level, they are pushing and pressing in areas that I would potentially say that they don't have to. What I've really come to realize in my own life is that I've done so many things, like activities and stuff, out of fear, because I really want to get to this next level and I'm not satisfied with where I'm at. So I'm going to push out something and get it out to the community before it's ready. And I'm going to rush to get something done that could actually wait until tomorrow. So what I'm seeing is just a lot of people burning at both ends of not being patient, not taking their time, and putting stuff out there before it actually needs to be out there.
Yeah, and that can definitely be different depending on whether you're working on a startup or you're working in a business. But especially when it's a startup, putting stuff out when you're ready, or when you're ready to take on the mental health challenge. Like I'm about to launch a new product, and I've brought somebody on the team that is going to be handling the comments and everything, because I know that I take a hit to my emotional health. I take a hit mentally when I'm in the thick of that, because I'm so close, my passion, everything. I feel so vulnerable doing that. But let's rip off the Band-Aid. All right. So Jacob mentioned ADD. So I'm going to bring in Q and bring in Jet. All right. So without, again, going into gory details, and I'll go first. In terms of mental health, so I suffer, and not saying that everyone has to be as transparent. I get to be the most obnoxious person here. But I suffer from social anxiety. So during COVID, being locked up, I developed panic attacks. So it's gotten a lot better. So I have social anxiety because I'm a double introvert. You can go look up what that means. And in general, that has affected me from going on a public and all those things. I much appreciate, these types of environments, right? And then the other things that it's affected has been things like my health, the high blood pressure, the eating, the emotional eating. I eat my feelings all the time. And, so everything's cycled in that way. But I would say that's been my main struggle. On top of which, I'm neurodivergent. So growing up in the environment which I grew up in, I suffered brain damage. I found this out later on, where an entire part of my brain doesn't work. Like I haven't been connected, but there are just certain things that don't go through my mind. My mind just does not work a certain way. For example, I don't have an inner monologue, right? And it's a superpower in some sort of ways. And then I have something called synesthesia, which means when your senses get crisscrossed. So, some people, when they listen to music, they see colors is what happens. And that's synesthesia, right? And this was shown to me by a doctor, and she was explaining this to me. And I was like, oh, that's totally crazy. So I have this as well. So I've got all this cocktail of stuff going in my head. And I've spent years trying to manage and making sure that I got the systems in my life, I got the support, to deal with it, right? And my wife has been a total champion and a hero. So those are the things that I struggle with, and they affect me as a founder. And they affect me differently as a founder than they would if I was an executive at work, or if I was running a small business, such as our gas station. I'm partners in a gas station, just south of us. Let's just, kind of create this environment where we can all share. Q, what would you say are your mental health hangups or different dysfunction that you got that affect your work? And again, only share what you're comfortable in sharing, but I want to create an environment where founders there know that we can talk about it.
How much time we got, Ed? I think one of the biggest things is, being neurodivergent as a creative. I think that's pretty common for most creatives. And I think that some of the side effects that come with that really impact my day to day is, like, for example, recently, the past 3 weeks, I have been barely sleeping. And I'm talking like I'm up sometimes until 8 in the morning, and I have like a nighttime routine and everything. Like I put away my phone, I read before bed, but sometimes it just is what it is. Like I'm just up all night. And obviously that impacts your quality of life, your emotional regulation, just your general performance. performance, right? So I would say that there's a lot of things that come with something like being neurodivergent. And I think it can also be a gateway to even depression if you're not sleeping properly, right? It impacts your hormones as well. So I would say that that's probably my biggest struggle over the past couple of weeks.
I'm pretty sure I've been clinically depressed a couple times in my life too. Let me just say something super quick. I'm glad, Q, you couched it the way that you did. We are not saying neurodivergence is a mental health challenge. What I am saying is your neurodivergence, and that's just a way of saying your brain just is not neurotypical. Like your brain just doesn't work the same way. And I agree. Creatives, especially creative people, I find some of the most neurodivergent people on the planet, right? But I am saying neurodivergence can affect your mental health because it's misunderstood, because there's a stigma. Like, and I'm glad that there are startups like we're talking about, like Pilea, I think was the name of it. And I'm glad that we're addressing it because a lot of founders have gone the wayside. One of the stories is Tony Hsieh of Zappos. He is a visionary and all these things. His mental health went down the drain after he sold his startup to Amazon.com. And it is a very, very well-known story amongst us founders. Very, very sad. We're talking drugs, getting connected with the wrong people, like just really, really, really sad stuff for someone who was like one of my heroes. Like I read his stuff and I followed him, type thing. But let's keep this conversation going. I got a big question for you, Jacob, after this. So I want you to load up. Jen, what about you? How has mental health, dysfunction, stress, any of those things affected your work?
This has turned into a session of the startup therapy.
Exactly.
And I think this is fantastic. I would also play on the side with Q, kind of same thing. If anyone has seen Inside Out 2, they introduced an anxiety character, and I'm pretty sure they based it off of me. That the way that anxiety processes and works and is shared in that movie is essentially what I've dealt with. I can focus on one little thing and it ends up, I make it something 10 times bigger than what it should be, which then results in not sleeping because I'm anxious and I'm thinking all the time. Not sleeping turns into not having a good attitude sometimes if I'm cranky, tired, which then I tend to push people away and just want my own time, which then ultimately turns into just sabotaging when I think that I need to be alone. Sometimes I actually need like my partner or someone to just talk to me and vent to, but I tend to actually sabotage that. That's what I would say.
Self-sabotage. Oh yeah. Sign me up. That's great. I'm under Wikipedia for self-sabotage for sure. You're right there. Okay. So Jacob, Mr. Executive Coach, we're coming to you. So a founder comes to you and says, I'm struggling with this. And like, I think mental health more, I'm depressed, but I can't just take a vacation. I can't just turn it off. Like I got to do these things. How would you tell a founder? Maybe we got a founder that's going to be listening to this and is going to say, all right, I need an intervention or something like that in the future in a recording. What advice would you give?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, as a coach, I'm not a mental health. I'm not a therapist, but I would actually encourage them if they were feeling like they had depression, if they were feeling that much anxiety, I would encourage them to go to a mental health professional and work with them to help work through some of those issues. Now, if they are struggling because there's something in their startup itself that they need to reduce time on, or they need to work through taking things off of their plate, I'd start there. What do we do to reduce the load, to help reduce the burden? But I think that's where I'd start, is help identify if seeking mental health or mental health professional is the thing that they need.
And that's okay. Like it is okay. Like the number of executives, I think they've done a good job in terms of releasing the stigma for mental health and to go get help when it comes to executives. I think that's okay. That's made a lot of strides. Yeah. But I think the reason apps like Pilea exist is because it's so bad for founders. It's like we're not allowed to talk about this. And just, you heard it from Jacob, and I would say that like there's no shame in going and talking to a mental health professional if you need it.